Hi, I'm Alan Hain, the Lawn Care Nut, and over the years, one of the most frequently asked questions I've got is, hey Alan, you use Milorganite, but what does it smell like? Well, I'll tell you what it smells like. It smells like success. Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Alan Hain, the Lawn Care Nut, and thanks for coming back for yet another week. Now, this is going to be a video, a first of its kind, and it's one that's an answer to a lot of you guys and your complaints. Because you guys are always telling me, Alan, now that you've moved to the South, you don't appeal to me anymore. You were really only my friend when you lived up north. Now I don't care about you. All your tips are from the South, and I'm bitter because I live in the North and the Midwest, and it's cold here, and your grass types don't appeal to me, and you're at the beach. I'm just kidding. You guys don't really sound like that. So anyways, I understand how you feel, right? You subscribe to this channel when I used to be up north, and most of my content was relevant to you, and now it's not. And while I know that I have a striking personality and that you want to follow me just because you want to see what I'm going to do next, I also realize I need to give you some lawn tips. Additionally, it gives me a chance to answer some frequently asked questions, and today's video is going to be answering questions that mostly surround my hybrid organic lawn program. So right now I'm going to link it right there. If you have not watched my hybrid organic lawn program, you should go watch that. Today's video is going to address frequently asked questions around steps 1 and steps 1.5, because based on what I'm seeing weather patterns in the Midwest and the North, this weekend would probably be a pretty decent weekend to start, or at least sometime in the next 7 days. Now, before I go getting too crazy answering a bunch of questions for you Midwest Northerners, cool season grass people, I also want to support you guys that are here in Florida enjoying this beautiful weather. So let's do an update on my St. Augustine plug grow. Alright, so as you'll remember, this over here are plugs created from sod. These are planted a lot closer together, but these over here are a little bit further apart. They're also a little bit larger. And this over here are actual plugs that come from Home Depot, but they're actually grown as plugs. Now, the first thing you're gonna notice is I do have some weeds coming in here. To have weeds coming in is very normal, and I've been treating them with a torch up until now. But as you're going to see, I'm not going to be able to treat them with a torch for very much longer. So the actual plugs are already starting to send out runners. See here? There's one right there, already starting to be sent out. This guy here. There's one there. Now here's the other side. These are the plugs made from sod, and actually these here, I've been watering twice a day. I have a sprinkler system. The sprinkler head is back there in the corner, and I've been running that every morning, but I have watering restrictions here, so I've been doing my second watering by hand. And I missed my second watering a couple days ago, and actually these actually dried up quickly. They're coming back now, but these were pretty dried up. But you'll see no runners yet. Let's go look at some of the larger ones. Here are a few of the larger plugs, and as you're gonna see, we don't really have any kind of anything coming out yet. See that? Nothing moving. Yeah, maybe there's one right there. So by far, one of the most frequently asked questions I get when it comes to step 1 and step 1.5 are questions that have to do with seeding and using grass seed. Now, the reason I put down grass seed in step 1 at the church video was because I had some areas that were really thin. They were less than 30% turf, and I'm not talking about that there was weeds in there was literally nothing in there. So if you have areas that are less than 30% turf, those are the areas that you want to seed. But you don't have to do a complete overseeding of the entire lawn. We're just trying to get a little bit of added strength or a little bit of added thickness or quickness in some areas that are overall thin. However, I'm gonna tell you that because of all the questions that come up when it comes to spring seeding, when in doubt, don't seed. You can just wait till the freaking airplanes. Now, if you are gonna seed, then it's gonna change the way that you're able to put down a preventative for crabgrass. And to understand that, you need to understand how preventatives for crabgrass work. All right, so here's your soil line, right? Here's your grass, turf, and then these are your root systems. You have crabgrass seeds that are located down in the turf, right? They're there, they're always there. And so what happens is when turf temperatures start to hit somewhere around the 50 degrees mark, that's Fahrenheit, it kind of starts to wake these seeds up. And so then what happens is they'll start to germinate, they will germinate, and then they come up and then they form a crabgrass plant, right? And then the crabgrass plant hits here. So all of this process typically is going to start in May, sometimes late April, but typically in May is when they kind of start to germinate. And then you don't actually start to see this part though until later June or July. That's typically when you start to see the crabgrass plants in full maturity. So if you get to them prior to May, then you're going to be able to prevent the crabgrass. Now let me explain how it works. What crabgrass pre-emergent is it's a chemical, and it gets into the soil and it kind of resides right here at the top of the soil line. And the way it works is when these crabgrass seeds begin to germinate and grow, and when the young, very young plant material hits that barrier, it disrupts its growth pattern and basically renders it powerless to grow. That's kind of how those chemicals work. Because of that though, they can also stop some weeds in the same manner, and they can also stop your good grass like Kentucky bluegrass or turf type tall fescue or any of your other cool season grasses. So that's why you have to understand how a pre-emergent works. It disrupts the growth pattern of a plant. Now there are some pre-emergents, which we'll talk about in a minute, that can actually control the crabgrass. Once it does actually start to germinate, they can still disrupt it later in its life. Other crabgrass controls don't have that ability. They're better at the very beginning stages, and they work a lot better in the beginning stages, whereas other types of crabgrass control work good in the beginning stages, but they can also get some control in the later stages. All right, now that you know how pre-emergents work, now we have to decide what kind of pre-emergent we're going to use. So there's going to be two scenarios that you guys are going to fall into, and then I'm going to kind of illustrate for you. The first scenario is if you're somebody that's going to be doing some grass seeding, but you don't need to overseed your entire lawn, just certain small areas that you may need to be putting some seed in. All right, so it takes a minute here. We're going to have to talk a little bit about step number 2 right now, because in step 2, that's when we put down our crabgrass pre-emergent, right? You're going to notice that in that step, I used dimension, okay, because it's a later season crabgrass control, and I used it in a granular form. Now, at the time, I was getting that from John Deere Landscapes. They're called something else now. The reason that I wanted to get it there is because I could get it in an 007, basically no fert. It was just the dimension, right? Any nutrient here was just used as a carrier, all right? There wasn't any real nutrient. It was pretty much just the dimension, pre-emergent for crabgrass, and it was granular. However, there are some disadvantages to that. If this is my lawn surface here, and I only needed to seed, say, this area here, and that area there, when I'm going across with my spreader and I'm spreading the dimension, it's really hard with a granular to avoid those areas, and so therefore it hits the seeded areas. That's why we talked about the short window where you needed to put down your seed in like pretty early April, right? Then wait 5 weeks and then apply your crabgrass pre-emergent. So we had this kind of tight window, right? Apply seed in April, wait 5 weeks, and that's 5 weeks after germination, by the way, not 5 weeks after you seed, and then you can put down your pre-em. That's a lot of problem, that's a lot of hassle, and that's not something that you need to do anymore. Reason being is I have a better source now, and we can actually get a liquid pre-emergent now. And we're going to get that from my guys at Solutions Self Chem. And I'll put their information below. You guys know Paul and Sebastian. A lot of you are already working with them. And so you can just call them and they'll help you out. But now what we can do, because they have liquid available, is we get a choice. Now I'm using the brand names here just because it's easier. Barricade is for early season control and Dimension is for late season control. But both are liquid. And let me show you why liquid is an advantage. So if this is my lawn area, right, and I'm looking down on it, and again, I needed to seed this area here and say I needed to seed this area here. In this case then, I'm going to go ahead and put my grass seed in those areas. And then earlier in the season, I don't need to wait until May now, I can actually use Barricade or prodiamine, right? And because it's liquid, I'm going to use a hand can to spray that. This is my best rendering of a hand can. I can actually control now, because it's liquid, I can cover all of these areas, right? Here, let's use another color to really illustrate. I can cover, with my liquid, I can cover all around, and I don't have to hit my seeded areas at all. That's the advantage to using a liquid, is I can easily avoid the seeded area. The key being that I use liquid barricade, and I use that early. So if you're somebody that's just seeding a few small areas, then I want you to use pre-diamine or barricade, and I want you to go ahead and put that down as soon as soil temperatures hit around 50 degrees. Again, that's soil temperatures, not outside air temps. All right, now the other scenario would be those of you that you've got to seed large areas of the lawn. You don't just have certain spots or certain zones that you can avoid. Your lawn is overall thin. You're gonna need to do a broadcast overseeding. So the first thing to realize is if you're gonna be seeding the whole entire lawn, you can't put down any crabgrass pre-emergent for at least 5 weeks after germination. You really do need to wait that entire 5 weeks. Also keep in mind that germination is actually when the seed cracks and starts to grow. It's not 5 weeks from the day you seed, it's 5 weeks from the day germination occurs. 5 weeks later then is when you're gonna be able to apply the dimension. And you can also get that from my guys at Solution Self Chem. Now keep in mind, you've got a pretty short window here, right? Because if you get to the crabgrass too late, if it gets past that first or second tiller stage, then even the dimension's not gonna control it, and you're gonna have to go to quinclorac or some other solution to go ahead and kill the already existing crabgrass. But if we can, we wanna prevent it. So that means you have a very short window to get step 1 done with your seeding and starter fert. 5 weeks after germination is when you would go ahead and do step 2, and that's where you'd use the dimension. But I'll go ahead and give you an update on that a little later. Now another thing that you're gonna see that I did in step 1.5 is I went ahead and put down more grass seed, and then right after that in step 2, I did go ahead and put the dimension down. That's a no-no, and I shouldn't have done it. Putting grass seed down just a week and a half before you put dimension down is sure and sudden death for that grass seed once it germinates. So we just wanna stay away from that. I just kinda got a little cowboy there and was like, woohoo, throwing down some grass seed, boys and girls. Throw her down. Let's hope for the best. But I don't recommend that you do that. Throw her down. Throw her down. Throw her down. All right, but I'm not done with the grass seed questions yet, because again, you guys ask a ton of questions when it comes to grass seed. So the next one is, how to make my grass seed grow. Do I need to water it? Do I have to cover it up with soil? Any of that kind of stuff. So let's go through that. So I can tell you that they make these seeds now with these coatings on them, and those coatings that they put on the grass seed you get are designed to, number 1, retain moisture against the seed, and number 2, they're supposed to kind of simulate a little bit of seed to soil contact. And in most cases, they work very well. And so that's why you saw in the video in step 1, I was just kind of throwing the seed down in the bare spots and hoping for the best. And to be honest with you, I got some pretty good results. The thing to remember is cool season grass seeds like your Kentucky bluegrass and especially turf type tall fescue, the seeds themselves are large. They're not that large, but I'm using this just to illustrate. When you have a larger seed, it means you can get more of that coating on there, and then it can retain more moisture. However, you can improve germination rates by having some sort of covering on the seed, and that's why I like peat moss. So if you're gonna follow my advice that I talked about earlier, and you're just gonna spot seed or seed certain small areas that you can kind of handle, then you should go ahead and put some peat moss over top to simulate a little bit more soil contact, as well as help retain a little bit more moisture. Now, the other thing to keep in mind here is about watering. Up north, where I was in Indiana, a lot of what you have here in the spring are gray overcast skies, so no direct sunlight, even though it's a little bit warmer, dew and moisture in the morning, and you do get rain. So all of that together means that the seed with that coating on it stays pretty wet pretty well. However, as I learned here in Florida, where the sun beats down, the seed dries out almost immediately. So it depends really where you're at. If you're somewhere that was like Indiana, that was gray and overcast and damp in the spring, then your seed's gonna get enough water. However, if you wanna go ahead and add in some watering, that's certainly a good idea. And if you're following my advice and you're doing it in small spots, you can probably handle that by hand. All right, lawn care nuts, I'm gonna go ahead and end this one here now. We're coming up on 15 minutes for this one single video. So it looks like I'm gonna have to do an FAQ step 2 here pretty soon, and I'll probably do that sometime over the next week. Until then, I hope this is enough for you to chew on. Please go back and review steps 1, 1.5, and you might as well review step 2 as well in my hybrid organic lawn care program, linked in the description below. As always, thanks for watching. Happy spring to those of you up north. Glad that you're finally getting some warm temperatures. I'm Alan Hain, the Lawn Care Nut, and I'll see you in the lawn. Throw her down! Throw her down!